to welcome our speaker and my dear friend, Earl H. If anyone's wondering where they left their glasses, here they are. I'm going to put them on the piano.
Hi, my name's Earl. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me out here to share with you guys. It's always an honor and a privilege. I must confess that I'm relatively brain dead this morning. It was a really nasty flight from L.A. to New York yesterday. Actual pieces of the plane. The good news was it was inside the plane. Actual pieces of the plane fell off into the cabin. You know, one of those flights where they suspend service and strap everybody in, right? My idea of a good way to spend the day. Right? Horrifying experience. And didn't sleep much. Had a couple hours sleep, but apparently that's all I'm going to need because here we are. Hi. Thank you. I was mildly intimidated by that. All right. So, I'll knock down some Diet Coke and go. So, something about these 12 steps, apparently. We're going to discuss those. My disclaimer, not that I need one, but there's a lot of people who have lots of ways into the book, into the steps, into this experience, the purpose and value of it, their own styles, their own ways. Some people really love to get into the minutia of the book. You know what I mean? Okay, today we'll be reviewing the 9th word in chapter 3, the German root. You know what I mean? I just kind of, when that goes on, I'm an alcoholic. I've never really paid much attention to the facts. It's always been about the feelings for me. And I'm the kind of guy that I gotta feel it. I gotta catch a buzz. I gotta get that excitement going. I gotta feel like there's a way in for me. There has to be. I don't want to understand my life. I want to experience it. You know, I want to be complete, as Joseph Campbell said. I want to be present in the moment. I want to feel life. I want to feel love. I want to feel friendship. I want to feel purpose and value. It's understanding. It's never been that big for me, and it seems that that's always come as a result of action that I've taken. So for me, I've always had to, in reading the book and in being in book studies and in 12 and 12 groups and studying this and breaking it down and going and listening. There's so many great messengers in the program. There's so many people that have different ways. My thing has always been that I got to keep my eye on the prize. You know what I mean? And the prize for me is that I can become a man who's comfortable sober. Right? Because for me, sobriety, this isn't about stopping drinking and using. It's about staying stopped. How do I stay stopped? How do I have the process of recovery lay that down upon the process of my life? That's what I'm after. I'm after finding a way to make it possible for me to live a life that has a code of love and tolerance, as the book suggests to me that ours is a code of love and tolerance. And I think it's interesting that they suggest that to me. I'll speak for me. I think it's interesting that they suggest to me that I should lead a life based on a code of love and tolerance. Out there, they're talking about love. You know, in here it's love and tolerance. They throw tolerance right up there because they know me. They saw me coming. You know, I'm notoriously intolerant of myself and of others. I'm a self-centered, frightened human being, alcoholic. I was talking to somebody, there's a book study in my living room on Thursday nights. Ava came in and spent some time with us a few weeks ago in that very meeting. And I was talking to someone about, and by the way, if occasionally I just stop talking and I'm just standing here looking at you, you know, and I'll be right back, all right? what the hell was I talking about? We were in the book study. We were talking about the 4-step. I can't even remember why I was bringing that up. The hell with it. So, I've got to find a way in. I got to find a way in. The only way I get in is by doing. It's not, to me, I don't think it's so much about understanding this. I don't think it's about, for me, it's not about breaking down the minutia. It's not about, as my sponsor, the late great Donald Madden, my original sponsor, used to say to me, it's not about getting into it. It's about wrestling with it, certainly on a certain level, and listening to the dialogue. I go and I listen to the guys that get into the minutia. I listen to the guys who really, really, really want to break it down. And that's great, but at some point I have to live it. At some point I have to feel this thing. I have to be able to bring this sense of what I've come to understand into the action of my daily life. I got to get to a place where I'm comfortable, clean, and sober. I'm not going to get that way until I'm relieved of the obsession to drink and use. As long as I got the beast whispering in my ear, I'm not a comfortable man sober. And I can't live like that because I got to live life on life's terms. Right? Whoever's running the show apparently has not read as Earl sees it. Because what's rolling in my head a lot of the time and what's actually happening are two completely different events. I have to get in line with life on life's terms. And when it hits the fan, as it often does, I recognize that I'm not in charge of the fan, right? I've got to have some tools available to me to minimize the wreckage I will create in the frightened state I'm in when that occurs, right? I've got to get a hold of some kind of balance. The only thing that has ever brought me back, I got here, it was very clear that I had lived the life of a maniac. There was absolutely no balance in my life whatsoever. I was in the extremes all the time. I was either a victim or an assassin. I was never in the middle. It was just, don't hurt me, don't hurt me, don't hurt me, I'm going to kill your family. I was never appropriate in how I was responding to the world, No balance. When I got sober, I was a sober man with no balance. I became maniacal in sobriety. Right? I got to come into sobriety and they say, well, you know what, we exercise. I went, good. We'll exercise. Then we'll exercise. And I exercise until it literally, ripped the muscle from the bone. You know what I mean? It's just, work it out, I'm working out. It's like, something's wrong. I can't, I ran until I had stress fractures in my feet and was hallucinating, sitting in the back of meetings. How far did you run today? 13 miles. And I came in with 74 broken bones, you know what I mean? So me running 13 miles is, strange things are happening all the way, snapping and bopping down the track, right? Became a workaholic, just no balance. What I discovered is that sober, I was running from the beast. I was running from the beast all the time, trying to keep the beast at bay. Just that whispering in my ear, that thing that kept reintroducing the insane. Thought, to me, was based, I've got 16 years of experience that says for me to drink is insanity. Yet I would be standing in the back of Ohio Street on a Saturday night where my sponsor was the secretary, I had the cleanup commitment, surrounded by the guys that we were all sponsored by Donald, right? I'm in close. I'm in the action of sweeping up a meeting. And the beast would appear and just, how you doing, Earl? And you're sweeping up and it just, huh? You're having a very, very bad day. I can see that you're very, very stressed out. It's terrible. You're a wonderful human being. You're a lovely guy, and people treating you like shit all day long. I don't understand what the hell. It's an ugly world, Earl. It's a cruel and ugly world. And I can see that you're upset by this and then falling into what I would consider, Earl, a clinical depression. So, your sponsor, he's looking at us. Okay, smile and wave at your sponsor. Go ahead. Very good. All right, listen. First of all, we got to keep this just between you and me. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out and we're going to just have a couple of drinks. Don't overreact to that, Earl. Don't overreact to that. We're just going to go have a couple of drinks. We're going to unwind that spring inside you that's wound so terribly tight. We're going to work through this because I'm here for you. I've always been here for you, haven't I, Earl? I love you. I've never left. And we're going to work this out, and we're just going to keep this between you and me, and we're going to zip right back in. We're going to zip right back into the meeting. No harm, no foul. You'll see. It's wonderful. I love you. Now I'm in the middle of, I'm sweeping up. I'm doing it. I'm in the meeting. Sponsors right there. Two guys I love dearly. My two original friends in life are standing over there. I'm thinking, well, yeah, that makes sense. See, I can't have that because that guy's going to jump up. The beast is going to jump up and talk to me and deliver to me the option of a drink. Until the planets line up just right and I'm just beaten down enough by life and I'm just depressed enough and I'm just isolated enough and I've stopped going to meetings just enough and I've stopped calling my sponsor just enough to get me to have a couple of drinks and isolate me from the pack. Isolate me from my kind. Now the minute I have that drink, I activate the physical phenomenon of craving and I got a whole new brain I'm having a conversation with. I do that, I relinquish the power of choice. The beast is back in charge. And I got a whole different voice in my head now. Because he's been whispering and being nice. Because he has to. I give him a drink. It's a whole other Earl, ha! Thank you. I feel much better now. And listen, get yourself a piece of paper and a pencil. We got to write a few things. We got a lot to do today, all right? So let's just get the list together and get in the car because we're on our way downtown, okay? Now, and I know, Earl, you seem to need to act as if you're involved in this process in some way. You seem to feel like you need to be in the decision-making process. It makes you feel better. So, okay. All right. You pretty this up any way you need to. You want to weigh it out. You want to see, should I drink today? Should I not? Should I drink today? Should I not? You want to do that? Go ahead. But we will be drinking today. And it was only in sobriety that I looked back and realized, they're always doing this, should I, how come I never picked no? Why is it that I never picked no? You'd think if I was deciding, every once in a while I'd go, well, not today. Never happened. Always chose to drink. Always. So I gotta recognize that for me to be comfortable, the only way I'm gonna stay stopped is if I can get comfortable sober. The only way I can get comfortable sober is if I'm relieved of the obsession of the mind, the greater aspect of the disease. I've got to be relieved of this obsessive thinking. I got to get this voice out of my head. When I'm dealing with life on life's terms and I'm looking at the options that are available to me on a daily basis, drinking and using can't be on that table. As I review my options, that's not something that I'm considering. It's done. It's done. That's the whole point of working the 12 steps as far as I'm concerned. See, we got this triangle with a circle, right? Mind, body, and spirit brought together as a whole human being. Therein lies the balance I've sought my whole life and never had drunk or sober. That the only way a guy like me can experience any kind of balance in my life is if I'm freed from my addiction, if I'm freed from the beast, if I'm freed from the physical phenomenon of craving and the obsession of the mind, that physical allergy, right? I've got to be rid of all this stuff. I've got to get rid of it. The only way to do that is this triangle which AA adopted. Unity's the body, I bring it here. Right? I couldn't get sober, but we seem to be able to. Step 1 says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. I needed to do that with you. I got to do it with you. I couldn't do it on I couldn't get sober, but we seem to be able to stay that way together. Right? That unity's the body, I bring it here to you. I got to be with you. The recovery is of the mind, the greater aspect of my disease. How do I get relieved of the obsession of drink and use? Work the steps. That's what they're for. Right? Having had that awakening, the spiritual awakening is the result of working the steps. That was the whole point. To be restored to sanity, soundness of mind, relieved of the obsession of drink. The third side of the triangle, the spiritual. I can practice these principles and carry the message. I can be of service. How can I help you? But like the book tells me, I can't give away something I don't have. Right? I got to do the work. I got to get in there and I got to wrestle with these concepts and these ideas. And I got to try this stuff out. Right? I got to try to activate this stuff in my life so that there's a feeling associated with it for me. It's like, it's the Zen way, man. It's like chop wood and carry water. That's the deal. What we do around here, man, is we chop wood and carry water. Is I get up and I go to a meeting. Head says, don't want to go to a meeting. Thanks for sharing. Off to the meeting we go. Right? Don't want to work the steps. Why? Well, I'm kind of big on that Herbert Spencer thing. You know, I'm Rather proud of my ability to show a great deal of contempt prior to investigation. You know, I don't wanna. Why? Because I don't know anything about it, and I hate being bad at anything. If I can't be good at it immediately, I don't want to play. It's the way it is, right? I don't want to be the newcomer, right? Go to the step study, first step study. Hi, what's your name? Earl. Complete idiot. Steps. Have no information about this at all. Oh, good. What I loved was my sponsor. I remember when I first went to him and asked him to sponsor me. I wasn't even human. I mean, and I went to him and I said, you know, will you sponsor me? To which he replied, what? I said, will you sponsor me? And he said, yes. And you don't have to like what I tell you, and you don't have to think it's a good idea. You just have to do it. And I went, okay. And then put my head down and started to cry. Because I had just asked somebody for help. And you don't realize you haven't asked anybody for help in years until you do it. And then you think, my God, I haven't done. And I just started to cry. And he looked over me to his assistant, Jeff. And he said to Jeff with a big smile on his face, oh, wonderful, he's destroyed. I remember that. I looked up like, oh my God. This is the guy I picked? And I now come to understand, well, of course he was thrilled and delighted to see that I was destroyed. I had been beaten into a state of reasonableness by alcoholism. He wasn't going to have to convince me of anything. He was just going to tell me what to do, and I was going to go do it, because my ass had been kicked. I wasn't going to debate things with him, because it was very clear. You know, my best thinking didn't get me to AA. It almost kept me from ever getting here at all. So I became there was this willingness on my part that he found delightful. That all my ideas, I'd tried them all, and we'd all been beaten into the ground together, me and my ideas. And I could come and he could just say, do this, do this, do this, do this. And as a result of the doing of it, that I could have an experience. All right? So, Abe was looking at me like, could we get to 1 here? We got an hour for 1? And I don't blame you. We know, right? It's always funny to watch the people, like, Abe was one of my dearest friends. I love her dearly. We have a blast every time we get together. She shows me around New York. We have a great time, right? She comes to L.A. She meets my wife, you know, and comes to our home, and it's very nice. She's a perfectly reasonable woman. You know, it's remarkable. I mean, she's a very reasonable person. She says, you know, okay, here's the schedule we're going to do. You know, you got 6 hours, so 2 steps an hour, 50 minutes, 25 minutes a step, a little break for the smokers, you know what I mean? A little body break, we'll move to the thing. And I'm listening and I'm thinking, that's a very good plan. That's a very good plan. And I'm just so concerned that I'm the weak link in this plan. Because we never know. Who knows? No one ever knows what I'm going to say. It's such a crapshoot. Who's speaking? Earl. Is he good? Well, we'll see. It's different every time. And it has to be different every time for me. It has to, because got to get between those, man. Guess it. Right in there. There's nothing but right now for me. It's got to be right now. Right now. That's the thing that working these steps, the value of this, the buzz that's available is that. That we can be here together this morning, this place, right here, right now. There's nothing else. Because this is where our lives are. We're not having lunch now. Odds are we're gonna. Odds are. Can't do anything about the fact that many sirens in New York at night. I got 2 hours sleep. Can't do anything about it. Must let this go. And be here now. And have fun. And look into the eyes of my brothers and sisters. And know that I'm safe. Right? We're on the ground. We're not in a plane. We're here now. This is good. This is good. And that the steps Give me back right here, right now. I mean, when I was drinking and using, I like to go down. I like heroin, alcohol, barbiturates. These are a few of my favorite things. These are the things that I like. My idea of a good night sitting around checking my pulse. But if I can't get those, I'll take a big bag of the cocaine. Let's go up. I'm perfectly happy driving the freeways, decoding license plates. You know? Psychotic. I'm perfectly happy doing that, right? Because it's not, ultimately, it isn't about up or down. It's about I got to get out of right here, right now. Because right here, right now, I'm self-centered. I'm afraid. Right here, right now, I'm dealing with feelings. Can I deal with them? I can't even name them. You know, I just know that this feels terrible. I'm afraid. I'm comparing your outsides to my insides, and I'm losing every time. I'm not a comfortable human on the planet. You medicate me effectively, I can go out into the world. Right? I've got to find, so the thing that I'm trying to get away from with drinking and using is right here, right now. My alcoholism robbed me of now. So how can I live life? How can I be free? How can I know God? How can I be a friend? How can I love you? I can't love you in 20 minutes. Well, there are those that would disagree. Sorry, an inappropriate thought floated by. I'll just let that go. You get what I'm saying, don't you? Right? Life is now. I've got to be present in this. I can't be of service. I can't have purpose or value later. Now is the only time I can do that. So that for me is like, just to kind of frame up, that's why I work the steps. That's why I involve myself in the steps, to be relieved of the obsession of the mind, to be able to experience some sort of balance and inner peace, and be present in the moment, to be relieved of the obsession to drink and use. Relieved of it, which is what I think brings everybody into the semantic debate of recovered, recovering, recovered, recovering. I can't even get into that. You know what I mean? It's like, am I recovering? Yes. I do not suffer from alcoholism in the slightest. I have no obsession to drink or use. It's not even a thought. It doesn't even occur to me, let alone be obsessed by it. Am I recovering? Well, yes. Yet this is a process, and I move towards unobtainable absolutes in my daily life. Right? Everything that I do now can be done much better than I'm currently doing it, which is great news for me. Because if I get the buzz from doing this stuff, what that means is there's a bigger buzz ahead. That I'm going to know a greater peace. I'm going to know a greater love. I'm going to know a greater honor. I'm going to know greater discipline and as a result, greater freedom in my life if I continue on this path. This is really good news. Because out there drinking and using, I mean, it just goes bad so quickly. You know? First little buzz, secret to life. You know? My reaction to the first getting high was, I need to do this as often as I possibly can. And I did. What I didn't know at that moment was what was going to happen. That slowly over time, the buzz I was getting out there is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and the price I was going to pay for it was going to get greater and greater and greater. So that in the end, I'm paying an horrific price just to get even, just to get to zero. I'm not getting high anymore. I'm not having a good time. There's no euphoria being experienced by me. I'm just trying to get out of the pain and the madness, right? It's turned on me and it's chewing me to pieces. In here, it's the opposite. The more I do this, the more I chop the wood and carry the water, the bigger the buzz gets. The more in touch I get with a spiritual life. The more connected I become to you. More and more, for me, the distance between myself and others is not what separates us. More and more, the distance between us is what joins us. And I feel more and more connected to my God and to my fellows. The inner self and the outer self of who I am become closer and closer and closer together. I mean, it's almost, in that Eastern way, you know what I mean? That it's coming together. You know what I mean? It's coming together. And that's the peace and the grace and the dignity that a maniac like me can begin to move towards if I'm willing to work the steps. Now, having said all that, step one. All right? I think we've laid a little groundwork here. Let's move into the steps. Step one. Step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. Step two. Sorry. Sorry. Ava went. Step one. All right. Basically what they're asking me is, what's the problem? What is the problem here? If I don't get real clear on what the problem is specifically that I'm addressing, how am I going to come up with a solution to that problem? I got lots of solutions. Screwdriver, excellent tool. Excellent tool. Solve a lot of problems. If I have a flat tire, this is really not of a lot of value to me. I got to know what the problem is so I can come up with the proper solution to the problem. The problem for me, lack of power is my dilemma. I may be, and the book talks about it a lot. Talks about it in the doctor's opinion. Talks about it in the first several chapters. Talks about, I may be like normal man. It lists 5 different alcoholics. I have a book here. So, 3rd edition, I apologize. I don't have the modem to modem book. I apologize for that immediately. I'll come around to the 4th edition. I will. I'll come around to it. But I like 449 being where it is. It comforts me. But it lists like classifications of alcoholics. Classifications of alcoholics, and they're the psychotic, the one who's normal in every respect, except when he drinks, except when the question of drink is involved. And luckily for me, I read them and I go, yeah, well, that's me. Then I read the next one, I go, well, my hand just keeps going up. As I read through these different, I identify with all these guys, right? I have to. Thank you. Saw that happen, didn't you? Yeah. Back, Earl. Come on, back. Step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. So what's the problem? What's the problem here? Lack of power is my dilemma. I have an obsession of the mind and an allergy to the body. I got a soul sickness that manifests itself in that way, in the mind and in the body. I can kick and be relieved of the physical phenomenon of craving, and the book refers to craving as a physical malady, right? I can kick, but I dealt with a greater aspect of my disease. I have to be relieved of the obsession of the mind, or I'm never going to be able to get comfortable sober. Staying stopped is going to be a remarkably difficult experience for me, and I don't want the struggle. I want the freedom. I'm sick of fighting. The book tells me I got to stop doing that anyway. So I don't want to live my life battling the beast. One of the most horrifying things I've ever heard of in my life, there was a guy who used to come to, I used to do a workshop every Tuesday nights. I did it for 5 years. I'm on sabbatical right now for 3 months. Just got fried. And not unlike today. And this guy kept coming to the workshop, and you could tell when you met him, 30 feet away, you thought, oh man, troubled fellow. You could feel the pain on him. And it was very hard. And one day I walked up and I introduced myself, and he said, I've been coming to this and I've got almost 5 years of sobriety, and I'd love it if you'd sponsor me. And I said, of course I will. And we started to do the work, and we were talking, and we were outside in the parking lot week after week. We're doing this, and I'm standing there and I'm talking to him. And he was saying that he kept telling me about this friend of his that really didn't want him to be sober. In my head, I'm thinking, well, get rid of him. You got somebody that stands between your sobriety or is in opposition to that. My opinion is immediately that individual's removed from my life. I'm not interested in somebody who's going to work in opposition to my own well-being. And he would talk to me, and he would stop, and he would look away for a second, and then he'd come back and he'd talk to me. And I suddenly realized what was going on. The person that was in opposition to his sobriety was in him. When he got sober, it had been such a horrifying experience for him. He'd had a psychotic break. And there were 2 people living inside Jeff. And what Jeff did every single day was Jeff would wake up and sober, physically sober, and this individual inside him would begin to tell him how today's a good day to drink. and he would battle this other individual. It's a separate entity in Jeff's mind about whether or not to stay sober. During the course of the day, this other individual would get drunk. Not with Jeff, but would get drunk and talk to Jeff as a drunk person and go. And then so the next morning when they would wake up, right, this other individual who lived inside him didn't remember getting drunk, didn't remember the difficulty of being drunk, but Jeff did because he was sober, and he would begin the process again. So he would do this every day, talk to this individual and then talk to me. And I would look at him one day and he was really in crisis, and I said, and my goal was to try to get him to some outside help. That was my job with him, was to try to get him to some outside help. And I looked at him and he said, and I said, he doesn't like you talking to me, does he? And he said, no. And I realized I was in kind of a precarious situation, so we got Jeff to the right people. But I thought, that's the most remarkable 5 years of sobriety I've ever heard of, that this guy managed to stay sober in the face of that kind of psychosis that was occurring in his life. That was his commitment to sobriety. It was absolutely a remarkable thing to me. I can't live like that. I have the option and the opportunity to be relieved of that thinking, to get that, be rid of that. And I've got to do it. Step one clearly is this me? Is this me? Do I suffer from an obsession of the mind and analogy of the body? I don't have to get off the couch to do step one. I can read the book, go through this, answer honestly, is this true for me and do I identify with this? The answer is yes, move on. Step one. Yeah, I'm powerless over alcohol. I've tried everything. My whole life is unmanageable as a direct result of this one thing in my life. I can attribute all the problems of my life to my drinking and using. All of them. They're all either created by or exacerbated by my drinking. So, having established my problem, what's my solution to this problem? What can I do to be relieved of this condition? Step two. Luckily for me, the very, very next step. This is my problem, what's my solution? Step two. Could I come to believe that a power greater than myself, something outside of self, could restore me to sanity, soundness of mind, relieve me of the obsession to drink? Could I come to believe that? Again, sitting on the couch. Yep. Tried everything. Self-knowledge has availed me nothing. Understanding that a guy called me an alcoholic when I was 16 and a half years old. He says, Jesus, you're an alcoholic! And I looked at him like, what's your point? Of course I am. Working for me, thank you. You, on the other hand, seem quite irascible. Would you like a drink? You seem upset. Yeah, I knew I was an alcoholic. I did not know what alcoholism was. I didn't know what I was up against. I didn't understand the depths to which I would go. I didn't see the writing on the wall. I knew I was an alcoholic and I was okay with it. So, step two, could I come to the knowledge, the information, my own understanding and awareness never stopped me from drinking. Right? So I came to you basically saying, what does someone like me do? What do I do? Right? We're going to talk about it. Am I going to go to AA meetings and listen to you? And as a result of listening to you, I'm going to feel better? Maybe. Temporarily. Or is this A&A thing me constantly coming to you, sitting with you, getting some momentary relief as a result of a meeting? Maybe, maybe not, depending on how the meeting goes. Right? And then I leave to do battle once again? That my respite is in my infrequent companionship with you? I'm screwed. I'm screwed. I got to find something else. It's going to have to be a power greater than me. Some people say the group works for them. Cool. Some people say nature. Excellent. Me personally, God. Me personally. Now, I came to AA saying there was no God. No God. I laid on a mountain in Mexico in 1974 and watched my family bleed to death right in front of me. Swore I'd never love another human being again as long as I lived. There's no way I'm ever going to tell you who I am. There's no way you're going to love me. I'm out. And any God that would take a kind, gentle, loving creature like my little sister Kimberly and leave a lying, cheating, thieving, dope-fiending alcoholic like me on the planet, I have no use for God of this type. Renounced God. Came into AA, raging against God. until my sponsor just got sick of it, Donald, and he loved these moments, by the way. He would lie in wait for me, wait for me to just say one more stupid thing so he could take the 2x4 and just bash me right between the eyes with it, right? And I was ranting about God, and he just looked over at me and very calmly, with a twinkle in his eye, because he's loving this, and says to me, Earl, you can't be mad at a God you don't believe in. And I just looked at him and went, I have to go now. It just, and there it was. I had a relationship with God. It was just a bad one. I had a bad relationship with God as a direct result of my point of view, my attitude, my insistence upon things being different than they are. Ridiculous. I didn't see that. I wasn't aware of that. It took someone who'd done the work and gone before me to point this out to me. And however mildly loving a way, he chose to do it. But there it was. There was the truth for me. And that I had to get right with this relationship. What I love about the steps is the steps are about me, God, and you. There's nobody else to play with. But that's it. It addresses me, it addresses God, and it addresses you. And I like the order in which they're placed because it's very clear that I got to get it together over here. I got to get it together over here. It's me, God, and you. I got to admit that I'm powerless. I got to seek God as a result of this in step 2. I've got to be willing to say, yeah, it's going to take something outside me. Left to my own devices, I'm screwed. I have to surrender this to some force outside of self. The great leap. It's the great leap. It's the great leap right before I have to pull the trigger. Because in step 2, could I come to believe in this? Yes. Where am I going to begin this process? The very next step. Right? I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to get down on my knees and I'm going to turn my will and my life over to the care of a God I may or may not understand. Huge. Particularly when you think about where a lot of us come from. The pain, the dis-ease, the disconnectedness, the isolation, the loneliness, that what do they call it? The morass of self-pity, right? The incomprehensible demoralization that we experience that drives me off into what appears to be the abyss. To relinquish control, to let go for really the first time. That little slogan, let go and let God, right? It's a tidy little statement. It's a cute little quip, right? That used to piss me off. Oh, well, that's lovely. That's lovely. Let go. I'm going to put that right next to turn it over. Thank you. Love those. Love those little AA slogans. And I love what we do to newcomers with them. The newcomer comes in, he's just stepped out of hell into the back of a meeting. All right? Probably a little edgy. A little concerned to have just stepped into a world completely unknown to him. No understanding of what's going on. Nothing. Filled with a head full of alcoholism. How can it be any other way? Steps into the back of an AA meeting, looking relatively normal. Some of us not. And sits down and we walk up and, hey, how you doing? How you doing? Earl, alcoholic. Right? Now I remember when Vegas ran up to me smiling and said, hey, Vegas, alcoholic. I said, so what? Ain't exactly the highlight of my life, Vegas. I don't know what you're so thrilled about. Get away from me. And he looked at me and he said, keep coming back. And a couple, AA hotshots over here went, yeah, did you see that? I said, yeah, very good, Vegas, very good. Keep coming back. Deep, man. Deep, brother. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this is good. Loving AA so far. Yeah, thank you, Vegas. I'll keep coming back. I'm sure at 3 a.m. this morning when I'm ready to either kill myself or several other people, as I usually am, as I slowly fade into my 1 hour of sleep a night I'm getting so far, right? I'm sure that keep coming back is going to be very helpful. Thank you. And it's also very clear that there's some deep spiritual significance to keep coming back. I can see that because the friends over here with, oh, yeah, deep thing, right? I know y'all know what keep coming back does. I don't. You win. I'm the loser. We've all pointed that out at this particular AA meeting. Loving AA so far. If you're new in here, right, I hope you have more courage than I did. Step up to the plate and ask him, excuse me, do you understand what let go, let God means? Do you understand the deep spiritual significance of this? Because if you do, I'd love to hear about it. Well, if they were in my neighborhood, if they're honest, about 75% of them would say, I don't know what it means either. They said it to me when I came in. I'm just saying it to you. Oh, I love that. Signs. It's good. It's like a prompter, huh? 5 minutes till what? Oh. All right. I thought, good news. Something big is going to happen in 5 minutes, guys. Oh. So this is what I'm saying. Step one, what's the problem? Lack of power is my dilemma. I'm powerless over alcohol. My whole life's unmanageable as a result of that one thing. If that's my problem, lack of power, what's my solution? A power greater than myself that can restore me to sanity, soundness of mind, relieve me of the obsession to drink, so that I can walk the earth a free man. That's the buzz I'm looking for. Step two tells me this is possible. This is up ahead. This is what encourages me to continue. And that's all I've ever needed out of this book, personally. All I've ever needed from any page in this book is not this deep, critical-minded understanding of the nature and the root of the words and how they were connected. I don't think when they reviewed this book or edited it that they said, we better take the word evening off of page 239 because the other words in that sentence are of a Germanic root, and that one is not. I don't think that's what was going on. Were they conveying a sense of what it is I must seek, what it is I must have? If so, I'm compelled to read the next page. That's what's up for me. There has to be an experience that leads me to the next thing. It's almost like, have you ever read the Zen koans? Have you ever read the little Zen sayings and you read it and you go, blackbird sits on branch in winter. And you read that and you go, wow, that was entertaining, right? And you go to the next one. But if you're willing to take the time and you read that same thing twice a day, just read it twice a day. I think this applies to the book. It's a masterful Western koan of 164 pages, right? Is if you read it, blackbird sits on snowbound branch or whatever it is. Blackbird sits on snowbound branch. Blackbird sits, blackbird. Oh, blackbird. All of a sudden, a childhood memory comes to mind. Pop, as you're reading it. Oh, and there's a sense and a feeling that comes as a result of that particular image, the visualization of that image, or the sound that's mentioned, the cracking of the ice or something. And something starts to happen to you, and there's an experience, a feeling that comes as a result of that that's comforting or peaceful or settling in some way to the self, right? That's what this does. This book does the same thing. It's a book designed to bring about an experience, right? Self-knowledge availed me nothing. I stood at the turning point, right? The book tells me it's not about getting it. It's about getting it. Getting it. Can I have an experience that moves me to the next page? Am I compelled to read on? If so, we're doing great. Break. Thanks. We'll be back. 10 minutes. Any questions so far? How could there be? Sure. I don't know. Ask it basket. That's what we need. We have one. No one has any questions so far? Yes, ma'am. Hi, Amanda. The question is, who gives a hoot what kind of alcoholic we are? Why should we have to fit into any particular category? Excellent question. Seconded by this woman over here. Yes. And I agree with you. You know, all that stuff is in the beginning, I think, is people could say, oh, well, I identify with that, or identify with that a little bit, or identify with that. And it just allows you to move on. You know, you'll hear people in meetings say, oh, hi, my name is, you know, Bob, I'm a real alcoholic, or, you know, I mean, as opposed to the rest of us, you know, who thought AA sounded like fun. We'd just come. You know, alcoholic. You know, I agree with you. We can't point to anybody else and say, you know, I'm an alcoholic. And, well, actually, in a meeting I did here one time, it was one of the greatest things I ever saw in an AA meeting. It was at my home group on a Monday night, and they asked for anybody that's new, just stand and give us your name and the nature of the disease so we can get to know you better at the break, right? And at my meeting, we actually do that, right? And this guy anybody new, and this hand goes up, and this guy stands up. My name is Claude, and I'm an alcoholic. And he goes, and so's that guy over there. And sits back down, right? I thought that was the greatest thing I ever said. You know, he's right. That guy is. I've heard him say it before. I love that stuff, right? Yeah. It's just stuff that you can go, yeah, well, that's me. Carry on. You know, I'm an alcoholic. Who identifies me as an alcoholic is me. Nobody else. You, nobody else. You know, what we identify with, how we come to that, you know, is how we come to that. A lot of us knew it before we got here. It's amazing for me, because I'm a low-bottom, damn near dead drunk when I got here. I mean, I got here and went, yep, that's me, yep, that's me, yep, that's me, yep, that's, you know what I mean? There's no question. It's amazing to me, because it's outside my own experience, but I see it happen, are the ones that come to AA that aren't convinced, have somehow gotten here not yet convinced that this is where they need to be. It must have something to do with the amount of education that's gone on in our communities over the last 25 years, that they find their way in here. Or they got the nudge from the judge, you know what I mean, or a family member's forced them in, or, you know, they're here under threat of some terrible event, you know. And they go through this process and discover that they are. You know, it's just amazing to me to watch that happen. I love watching that happen. It happened to a guy I'm sponsoring right now. Let's see, he's got to have about 57 days now. Yeah, 57 days. He's very funny, too. We read a meeting. The last meeting I was at with him, he had 51 days, and there was a guy who'd shared right before him who had 41 days. So he had 10 days more than this guy. So the guy's sharing about, you know, his plight as a recovering alcoholic at 41 days, right? And the guy's going through a lot. And my guy raises his hand, you know, Dave, alcoholic, and he looks at the other guy and he goes, and I got 51 days, and brother, I got to tell you, I've been there. Yeah, last week. You were there. Oh, God, we're classic, aren't we? So, did I help with the question? Thank you. We all right over here? All right, good. Any more questions? We've covered so much already. All right. Step 3. Made a decision, right? To turn my will and my life over to the care of God. I mean, to keep this one simple, for me, some people apparently have no problem with this step. They come in with a significant spiritual life in place. It's odd that the normie thinks, how can you be an alcoholic and have a spiritual life at the same time? Easy. You have a profound faith in God and you drink uncontrollably. That's how you do that. That's how that happens. But the third step for me was very scary. This was a very scary step because I knew going into this process that my life was on the line. I knew that I was in the last house on the block. I knew that if this didn't work for me, I was a dead man. I knew that there wasn't another game that I was going to get in that was going to help me with this. This was going to have to work or I was screwed. Because I was so angry at God when I got here, what the third step meant to me was I going to become willing to turn my will and my life over to the care of a God I was incredibly angry at? Was I willing to turn my will and my life over to the care of a God I saw as an unjust and unforgiving God? Was I willing to turn my will and my life over to the care of a God I may or may not understand, I may or may not believe in, that this is all up for grabs, this unseen, unknown, untouchable presence, this experience where I had yet to meet the individual who could tell me about the face of God. This was really an alarming leap into the abyss, if you will, for somebody like me. The beauty of this thing, though, is that on the one side I had my experience of 16 years of chronic alcoholism and drug abuse, and on this end I had a bad relationship. I jumped. I pulled the trigger. I got down on my knees and to the best of my ability turned my will and my life over to the care of a God I did not understand. That was the best I could do. The best I could do is, I don't understand. If this God thing, if this is what I must seek to relieve me of these problems, how can this be the same God that I've had these other, right? There was so much self. There was so much self inflicted upon this relationship. There was so much willful behavior inflicted upon this relationship. There was so much dogma that was in my head that I was inflicting this relationship with that I couldn't see it for what it was. It was so befuddled and enmeshed. I couldn't just let it be what it was. So I did this. I turned my will and my life over to the care by getting on my knees and saying the third step prayer and getting back up. And how that felt was, and I felt it was spooky. Right? I mean, what I basically felt is that my life is on the line. I just took a pair of dice, and I don't even know what the game is we're playing. And I threw them out on the board, having no idea what to expect. That was the leap of faith, right? In spite of my own experiences, I must go this way. In spite of my own crippled belief system, I must go this way. Those who have what I want are saying go this way. See, that's the amazing thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is I'm sitting around in meetings and there's guys like the late Fred Ellis, right, in these meetings. And this man would talk, and I believed everything that man said. If I stood next to him, if I felt like I'd taken 20 milligrams of Valium, I just, nice. Fred makes me feel good. Now, I was too afraid to talk to Fred, right? So at the Thursday night beginner's workshop in Brentwood, California, Fred was always there. At the end of the meeting, Fred would stand up, like right over here by the podium, and guys would come up and talk to Fred. Guys he sponsored would check in with him and ask questions, and Fred would share his experience, strength, and hope with them. And I would stand behind Fred and burglarize their conversation. Right? I did this for many, many weeks. And then one day, Fred was talking to these guys, and all of a sudden, Fred turned around and went, "Hi, Earl, how are you?" Stuck out his hand, and I went, paralyzed. My God, he knows my name, which was entirely too close a relationship for me in early sobriety. Right? And there he was. And hi, and I said, hi, got to go now. Run home, pace. Jesus Christ, Fred knows my name. So I did this step. It felt like, when you get on the roller coaster and you're going up the thing and it's going click, 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 click. The third step is where you hear the click and stop. It's like, well, buckle your seatbelt. Here we go. You're on the ride now, pal. And that's how it felt to me. It felt to me because as soon as I did it, it felt a little spooky. It felt like, wow, man, I really did that. I did that as well as I could do it at that time. And I got back in my seat in the book. And basically the book says at that point, we were hoping you're serious about what you just did. Like, oh, now you tell me. Couldn't you said, you better be serious before you do this, right? I could have hovered right there at the brink of 3 for several years, having heard that. But it said, we hope you were serious about what you did, because, see, now we have to embark upon a plan of rigorous action, right? Or this is all just a conversation, right? A lot of guys sitting around in the bars, going, that third step is a bitch. Anybody in here ever heard of a guy named Mike Ross? It's apparent I need to tell you about Mike Ross. Not one hand went up. Mike Ross was bigger than life in every respect. Big man. I think when I got sober, Mike must have had, I don't know, like 1,100 years of sobriety. He'd been sober forever. He was this old guy, gruff man. And we used to love the guy. But my friend Christopher and I, we would go to this one meeting where Mike always went. And if you didn't have 10 years, he wouldn't even talk to you. You know what I mean? Because he figured you could die at any moment. There's no point in investing any time in you. I mean, just this hard-edged guy, right? But what we didn't care. You know what I mean? What we loved about the guy was what he shared in meetings and the way he would say goodnight. Because, I mean, every time you'd see Mike and he'd be walking off towards the door to leave, and we'd be behind him and we'd go, "Good night, Mike!" And Mike would think that a friend of his was calling out to him, and Mike would turn around to say goodbye to a friend and go, he'd just dismiss us. You're not even worth saying goodnight to. We only had like 8 years, Guy was hysterical, but he saved my life more than one time. We would be sitting in a step study. I remember going to this one step study, brand new, and I mean, my head's on fire. I'm in flames. Just nobody can see it. You know what I mean? I'm walking in a meeting, and I'm going to get a seat, I'm going to sit, we're going to talk about the steps, Okay, good. Apparently steps are a big thing. We'll talk about steps. Four step. Haven't done that yet. Let's hear all about it. Great. I just, sit in a meeting, I'm like out of my mind, but people are walking up and going, "How you doing, Earl?" "Fine." "How you doing, Earl?" "Fine." My newcomer mantra, "How you doing?" Fine. In my head, I'm thinking things like, "You're not being attacked. You're not being attacked. He just said hello. You're not being attacked. Mayday, person coming at me." Dicey in my head. And I'm sitting down and a guy shares about the 4-step, talks about the 4-step. Great length, great detail, minutia, God, could there be any more about this step? It's brilliant. I remember thinking, gotta get the guy's number. Fabulous. Broke the step down. What more could I need to know? Next guy raises his hand. Goes on for 5 minutes about the 4-step. Just fabulous. It's just unbelievable. Couldn't be less like what the last guy talked about, but delightful. Very entertaining. Great stuff. Thinking, okay, all right, we got two ways to do this now. By the 5th guy, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I don't need to buy a new gun because I'm only going to use it once. I'm ready. This is it. I can't do this. And all of a sudden in the back, a big mitt goes up in the air. And the guy calls in here, "Mike Alcoholic." Here comes Mike Ross, right? And he goes like this. And I go, "Jeez, maybe he knows, the old guy." You know what I mean? I turn around and I see this go up. It goes like this. "I gotta ask, has anybody in here read this?" And I just went, thank God for this guy, right? And he just basically says, when you do your 4-step is when you're done with the 3rd. I got that. That sounds good to me. He made it very clear. When should I do my 4-step? Did you do the 3rd? Yep. Get on it. Make a list. Oh, okay. The guy just had a way of, it's just, don't want to go round and round and round, want to move, want to carry through this process. Because here's the thing about this whole thing. You are not going to get this right, according to Mike, in your first pass. This isn't about getting it right. This is about getting it, doing it, having an experience as a result of the process. The cool part about the steps is, you're not, it's like, okay, does everyone in here recognize that you're allowed to do the steps once? We don't allow you to do it any more than one time. So you better get it right the first time. If you don't, you're screwed. You will be relegated to the half measures room. And there you must stay until one day, mercifully, you just drink. No. If I do the steps to the best of my ability, I'm doing something. I'm taking an action. As a result of the action, an experience comes. As a result of the experience, I change. So that when I come back to step 1, I'm looking at it from a different perspective. It's a new step. Right? I remember going into a meeting. I was 11 years sober, and there's a guy. I was meeting this woman at this meeting, and I go in there. I'm not going to a meeting. I'm going to meet her. Right? And I slide in, and right before the meeting starts, And there's one seat, she's got a seat for me in the front row. Oh, good. All right. Now, the front row is 6 feet from the speaker. Because it's just a table, a fold-down table, and there's the leader and the speaker sitting there. And this guy, Jack, is going to talk on step 1 for 20 minutes. Oh, Christ. And I'm in the front row, and I can't just go, can't hang with you, Jack, and run out the door. You know what I mean? I'm stuck. I'm going to have to sit and listen. Now, I got 11 years sobriety at this time, right? You can't tell me a thing about step 1. I have done step 1. It's done. Put it to bed. Case closed. 100% done. Step 1. You're not gonna. This is hell. I'm in hell. I got to listen to this guy go on about step 1. Well, it turns out the guy was Jack Prose, who had 43 years of sobriety at the time. He talked for 20 minutes on step 1 and blew the top of my head off. He was talking about concepts and ideas and a level of awareness that had never even occurred to me before. Just talking about the steps, just kind of tripping on where he was at with it, right? And when the meeting was over, I looked at my friend and she said, well, what step are you on? I went, well, 1. Apparently I'm on step 1. And the cool thing about AA is that if you hang around here and actually pay attention, that's going to happen all the time. All the time. I thought I was very cool with God till a woman, I was about 16 years sober, and a woman with 2.5 years got up at the podium, started to talk about her relationship with God. Blew my mind. It was great. That's what goes on around here. Different people coming at it from different perspectives and different directions. So if you're thinking about doing it, if you do the book, if you come up to me at the end of this and go, delightful, Earl, very entertaining, however, I do it a completely different way. Okay. That's my response. Okay, good. That means more dialogue. What I love is people who get up here. Occasionally we'll do this sort of stuff and somebody will come up to me and go, Earl, I find your comments on the process of recovery disturbing. Really? Yeah. Yeah, I think you're killing alcoholics, Earl. For Christ's sake, you need to do it this way. Here's my workbook that I've developed over the last 8 months. And I'd like you to take this workbook and explore what I've seen as the relationship between God, self, and others. I say, okay, cool. And Earl, please, for God's sakes, just, don't talk in AA anymore until you've read my book. Say, oh, all right, then thanks for sharing that with me. That's lovely. And I love how pissed off people get about this stuff. It's hysterical to me. I'm standing in a room with a bunch of dead people sitting up pretending they're paying attention to me. Right? We're alcoholics and drug addicts, and we're arguing over how to develop a relationship with God. It's like, okay, I can't get too upset about this, all right? It's crazy, right? What we're doing, we're wrestling with the concept of God here, right? In this third step, I wrestle with the that's what Israel means, one who wrestles with God, right? The book. It says to me in the portion of chapter 5 that I've heard God knows how many times in 22 years. God could and would if he were sought. It doesn't say God could and would if he were found. God could and would if he were sought. Then I must seek God. I'm given very, very specific instructions on how to go about doing that later on in the steps. I must seek God. But what I've got to do at first is throw myself at it, to open up my arms and say, I let go, I let God. I surrender. I can't, God can. I'll let him. God could. Restore me to sanity, soundness of mind, relieve me of the obsession of drink. Now, and what's interesting is that the action of these steps, where I seek this God, is remarkable to me. That it's about my willingness to get the stuff that I place between me and God and me and my fellows out of the way. I put it there, I get rid of it. I don't ask God to get rid of it, I do it. I don't ask you to do it, I do it. I do it. I don't sit in my apartment and wait for life to come knock on the door. I must get up and go outside. I had a sponsor, my second sponsor after Donald died. I had a second sponsor for 6 years. He's a great friend of mine. I love him dearly, Al S. He's the guy that get between those, right? He's a big meditation guy. It's very difficult to talk to because he's just being there while you're talking to him. He's a fantastic example. So he's a sponsor. You don't do what he says. You just watch him and feel him. You know what I mean? Just right there. He's An amazing human being. Absolutely amazing. But he said, Earl, if you give your life to God and sit in the closet, what you get's coat hangers. Right? It took me 6 months to wrap my head around that. It's like, all right, I'll be back when I have any idea what that means, Donald used to say to me, Earl, God comes in shoe leather. Okay. Apparently God is a shoe salesman. I don't. So I get it, right? There's these actions I take to open myself up to this experience of a power greater than myself. I can assure you I do not understand God. I pray to a God I don't understand. But I do pray to a God that I see the evidence of in my life on a daily basis. On a daily basis. It's there if I want it. That's a lot of what the big buzz is for me. Are these sudden realizations that if I just stand still and feel the life that is around me, that there's something quite remarkable going on all the time. That's the cool thing, man. It's better than any drug I ever took. I took so much LSD that I was classified legally insane by the military. Right? And this buzz is better. This buzz is better. I've done enough heroin in one night to sit around, just checking my pulse. Yeah, there it goes again. Good. I've slowed it way down. I've drank enough alcohol to come to in different cities. Right? No buzz better than that. The clarity of being completely present in a moment and feeling the presence of God. That's an amazing event. And this is the only way that that's available. How I begin that process is by being willing to turn my will and life over to the care of God as I understand Him or don't understand Him. To get out on my knees and say the third step, prayer. And I mean literally get down on my knees, not figuratively speaking. For me, literally. I literally get down on my knees and say that prayer. The reason I do that is I got to humble myself. Humility is the willingness to learn for me. And I have to present myself willingly. And that way, I know for a fact, there's no mistaking. I can't say, well, I feel willing as I stand there with my chest out. But if I'm willing to get down on my knees and just do it from a position, I'm not being submissive. I'm relinquishing power. I'm relinquishing control. Come on. I'm here. I'm willing. If I ask, God will come. That's what the book says. I have to ask. I got to ask. Right? So I do. So that's step 3 for me. Nice and simple, easy. It's about the experience of it. It's about gathering an experience. It's about creating an opportunity for a deeper and more meaningful experience. That's what it is. Step 4, I just pulled the trigger in step 3. Boom. I'm in. The ride stopped clicking. Here we go. Right? It says I must immediately, I get up from step 3 and I embark upon a plan of action immediately. What's the action plan? For me, 4 through 9. 4 through 9. 4 and 5 is me. 6 and 7 is God. 8 and 9 is you. Nobody else to play with. That's everybody. We're all covered. What do I do in 4? Well, according to this, I do a resentment inventory, a fear inventory, and a sex inventory. Why do I do it on those 3 things? Because if you want to see where I can leave the playing field, those are 3 pretty good areas to take a look at. We're going to see a pattern develop here that a blind man could see. All right? And that's why I do it. And I just do it out of the book. I do a resentment inventory, right? I do it in 4 columns. There are those that will tell you it's 3 columns. There are those that will tell you there's 4 columns, but 3 of the columns are broken down into 4 specific areas. There are others that will tell you that there are 2 columns that are broken down into 1 into 3 areas and 1 into 2. There's others that will say, we do it in black and white, so when you do your 4th column, we suggest you use these 4 things and write a sentence detailing specifically how those things have come into being. To all of this I say, okay. Sure. Whatever floats your boat. Whatever you can look at and go, well, that makes sense to me. I can see that. Great. Then dive into that. Just do it. Just do it. First inventory I did, I went to my sponsor, who was not a big book guy. Donald wasn't a big book guy. He used to rant and rave at us. He called us little book thumpers. You little book thumpers. He goes, before there was a book, there was one alcoholic down in the dirt sharing his experience, strength, and hope with another alcoholic. Well, that's true. We're going back to the book now. And you would get into the book. And in my first inventory, I said, what do you want me to do? He said, get rid of the garbage. So I wrote 27 pages of garbage and told him about it. And I got my first direction from my sponsor in AA. My first direction was, we don't kill people here one day at a time. Which I thought was very reasonable, doable, just one day at a time, just today. And I haven't killed anybody one day at a time. I was actually planning a murder when I came to AA. So he felt compelled to tell me immediately, we don't do that. Yeah. My best thinking again. So I do a resentment inventory. I make a list of, and it talks about it in the book. I mean, if you guys want me to, I can waste a lot of time up here, put my glasses on and read it to you. Exactly what it says and why you do it that way. But I'm figuring these are readily available. You know? These are readily available. You want to see precisely how it is in here? Go here and read it. What I'm telling you is what I did was I went here. And when I finally did an inventory that was out of this book, that's when things changed for me. The getting rid of the garbage was great. It made it possible for me to take action that suggested I was making a commitment to being here. That was of value. Doing it completely different than the book told me to do it was of value. Absolutely of value. I think what that did was it allowed me to then feel like I'd earned the seat I was sitting in. In AA, that I was an active member. I'd written 27 pages of this stuff, and right down on paper. I was doing something in support of my own life, in support of my own recovery. I wasn't acknowledging that this was my problem. I wasn't acknowledging that this was my solution. I wasn't quietly slipping off the couch to my knees, saying the third step prayer and popping back up. I was actually, at the direction of another human being, my sponsor, writing down all my secrets, all the stuff I was going to my grave with. It was really, really valuable. Did it change my life? Yeah. Did doing out of the book have a more profound effect on my life than that? Yeah. Much more so. Much more so. Because I was able in this inventory out of the book to see the pattern of behavior in my life. When I looked at my inventory, when I looked at my side of the street, when I looked at how resentment, fear, my sexual behavior was isolating me in the world, when you looked at my whole inventory, I saw one word: powerlessness. A powerlessness to be effective in the world. Powerlessness in terms of my own individual well-being. Powerlessness in terms of my relationships with other people. That I was in fact a self-centered, frightened man, and that this was ruling my life. In my sexual relationships, I was either completely in control or totally unavailable. Right? Never in the middle. Never an equal participant. Unable, completely unable to do that. My relationship with God, I already told you about that. That wasn't doing so well. Relationship with self, filled with self-loathing. All of my relationships were just in the trash can. This was a painful experience. I listed my resentments. I listed the individuals that I resented. I listed the institutions that I resented. I listed the principles that I had great objection to. You know, loving and being loved, being on time, being accountable for my actions. Hated all that stuff. And when I got to this enough, I realized I just got out my address book. Because it basically got down to, because the question I ask myself when doing an inventory is, how free do you want to be? How free do you want to be? When that thing goes by and you go, well, not really, right? Well, if it floated by, write it down. We can discuss it later, whether or not it's pertinent, right? And people always ask me, Earl, can you have a resentment in your life that you have no part in? And my answer to that is, probably. There weren't any in mine. But I have actually sponsored a couple of guys that had some things listed, and they had no part in it. right? They had no part in it. There are circumstances that can occur in life that can cause you great deep-seated resentment that you have no part in. Yeah, I've actually seen it, and I'll be happy to discuss with anybody at one of these breaks that we have along the way. For you smokers, of which I am now a proud non-member of that group. Yeah. The smokers. No, here's the smokers. Anyway. So you do the inventory, right? I list my resentments. I resent my father. Column 2. Why do I resent him? What's my specific resentment against my father? Well, I got 54 resentments against my father. Right? 54. List them. 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, or 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 157. 1-57. I got 57 resentments against my father. Specifically. What areas of my life are affected by this? I use the 7 things that I was taught to come up in the book. Affects my personal relations, sexual relations, pride, self-esteem, security, ambition, and pocketbook. Yeah, that's 7. Right? I list any or all of those that are affected as a result of this specific relationship. What's my part in it? List 4 things in the book. Selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened. What are these things that aren't in the book? And specifically, how did this come about in my life? Next. Now, other guys break it down way more than that. One other guy that I hold in high regard, adore him, has now come to the belief that there is no 4th column. That it's a 3-column inventory. I have yet to discuss this with him. I have absolutely no idea what he's talking about. But I'm willing to listen. I'm not going to reject it out of hand. Fine, you got another way of doing it? Let's hear it. If it works for me, I'll give it a shot. Because this isn't about this way. It's about doing it. It's about getting this stuff down on paper and being relieved of this. This is the stuff that I put between me and God. So I get out my phone book because basically I realized at one point, my address book, if I knew you well enough to put your name and phone number in my address book, at some point you had frightened me. And if you frighten me, you piss me off. You frighten me, I resent you. Right? Now, early on, all you had to do to frighten me was walk up and say, how's it going? Well, what the hell are you asking me that for? How the hell am I supposed to know what's going on? I don't know what's going on. And clearly you don't either, or you wouldn't be asking me. I hate you. This is all entirely too much work talking to you. I don't want... Resentment. Write them down. I had Thomas Jefferson on my inventory. Have you ever read this guy's life story? The stuff that he did? Who could live up to this? Hated that man. Institutions, groups of people. See, this is, and what you write down, it doesn't have to look good. You don't have to say, oh, well, I don't really like that I feel that way. Write it down. That's your best way out of it. Right? You may discover that you're a bigot, a racist, a liar, a thief. You may discover that you're all of them and that you don't like that about you. Maybe those lessons your daddy taught you are not lessons you should have embraced or cared to embrace. And you've gotten to a point where to be who you really are, which is not a racist, not a bigot, not a thief, not a liar, that you can, that the ills of your father, that you can say, no, this is not who I am. I disagree with this. That you can get to a place in order to save your own life where you can make your own father wrong. Not easy to do for a lot of us. But we get there in this process. If we write it down and see the pattern of your own life, see it right there. I resent this stuff, right? Fear inventory. What am I afraid of? Fear of flying. Why? Because I crashed. Right? It's not a what do they call it when it's just, it's not a phobia. Thank you. He gets an extra bagel. It's not a phobia. It's based on my experience. Right? That I'm afraid of flying. Right? Well, why am I afraid of crash? And then move through your inventory. Move through. Basically, what I've discovered is I'm afraid of 2 things. I'm afraid of rejection and I'm afraid of abandonment. That's what I'm afraid of. Pretty much every fear I've got you can put under one category or the other. Right? In the 12 and 12, in the 7th step, right, second to last page, it says, self-centered fear is the chief activator of all my defects of character. Either I'm not going to get something I want, or I'm going to lose something I already have. Rejection and abandonment. And it gets real simple, so that when I'm functioning in my life, I don't have this blanket vague, unexamined wall of fear that I can throw up in the world. You know what I mean? So when you walk up to me and suddenly you're confronting me, Earl, I hate your discussion about step 3. Wall of fear. Now lob things over the wall until this person goes away. Yeah, well, I don't like your clothes. I don't like your discussion on step 4. I hate you. I don't like you either. Screw you. Lobbing stuff over. Make him go away. He's scaring me. Then the person goes away. But if I recognize all I'm afraid of is fear, I have a fear of not getting what I want or losing something I have, I'm afraid of 2 things, right? So, you come up and you scare me, and I throw up my wall of fear and I just go, well, that didn't work. I gotta take a deep breath and go, what am I afraid of here? I'm afraid I'm not going to get something I want to be accepted by you, or I'm going to lose something I already have. A reason for being here. Or just fill in your own blank, whatever it may be. What works for you, right? And it's just silly. And then you say, I don't like your thing on step 3, and I go, well, you know what? Let me take you back to the room back there. There's a whole bunch of tapes and stuff of other guys back there, some of whom I think are really good at talking about the book. Maybe one of them's got a way of breaking down step 3 or step 4 that you like. May I suggest Joe and Charlie? Right? It's got nothing to do with me. You don't like it? Okay. Fine. I personally delight in the way I do this. Find your own way. Find your own way. This is just one little glimpse of it. I don't have this thing wrapped up. I'll come back here next year, sit down and go, remember that time I was out here? You got a tape of that last one? Burn it. We got a whole new way of doing it. What would that mean? Would that mean that I was wrong today? No. It would mean that I've continued to explore the process. I have another way of communicating it. I have a different experience of it now, which requires yet another way of communicating it. So you just find your way through. Some of you are going to become big Joe and Charlie fans. Those are going to be your guys. So that guy and that guy and that guy? Crap! Then you're going to become a Joe H guy. The rest of us are peasants. Find your own way. It's all good. Because what you are, if you're prescribing to a particular path is you're saying, I'm an alcoholic and I seek this thing. I seek this process. I seek this unfolding in my own life. And that's what it's about. So that's all we're doing here today, is wrestling with it this way today. All right? So I do these 4-column inventories on resentment, fear, and sex. Right? Now, in step 5, I'm supposed to reveal these before God to another human being. I'm supposed to sit down with somebody and get it out. I would suggest doing that. Really, it's not that deep. Do you know what I mean? What you have to do, the specific way you go about it. The book will suggest, the 12 and 12 will suggest, the book will suggest, this is how you go about it, right? You sit down with somebody, the 12 and 12, Bill talks about all kinds of stuff in the 4-step. He talks about, only thing in the 12 and 12 I disagree on, this is just me. I actually disagree with something he says. He says, well, if you got a bunch of really, really heavy stuff that you read most of it to your sponsor and then you go to another person, there's one paragraph, and talk about the rest of it with somebody else. I don't go for that personally. I was so good at compartmentalizing my life when I was out there. That was one of my major problems, was that nobody knew the whole story. This guy knows a little bit, she knows a little bit, that guy knows a little bit, she knows a little bit, but nobody knows Earl really. Nobody knows the whole deal. And there's pieces in each of those compartments that say an awful lot about who I am. So I had to find that's just me, I had to find a place where I could give it all up. All of it in one place. So that's what I did. Before God to another human being. And I sat down and I laid out my 4 columns in resentment inventory and I did it in columns, right? And I read it in rows. Right? I wrote my resentment list until it was done, then I went to column 2 and answered the stuff in column 2. When that was done, I went to column 3. When I read it to the individual that I read it to, I read it across in the rows. 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, till 1 was done, then I went to 2. And I read across. And that way. And that was how it became a completely different document. Doing it that way. Instead of just this way, all of a sudden I'm doing it in another way. And this incredible pattern of behavior in my life is revealed to me. Right? So that was the fifth step. I sat down and I did it. Was I happy about this? No. Was it a comfortable experience for me? Absolutely not. Did I have a lot of discussion with my sponsor as I was reading it to him? No. Anything that was said in that meeting, other than what I had written down, was conversation that he introduced. My job was to show up and read what I had written. Not offer further explanation, read what was written. Not an occasional preemptive strike where I would sit and go, now this next one. Let me discuss this next one with you. I want to restate that I was not in my right mind, that I personally do not consider this to be an example of who I am. None of that. He just shut up and read it. And I read it, and occasionally he would say, time out. Right? Read that last one again. I loved that one. And he would he would do that to me. Or he would do the wonderful, loving sponsor type thing where he would say, that reminds me of a story, because he'd see that I'd read one that I was particularly ashamed of. And he would say, that reminds me of a story. And he'd tell some atrocious story about something he'd done that was very, very similar to this hideous event in my life, right? And it relieved me. I mean, there was healing that went on as the process took place because of who he was. I mean, it was just an amazing, amazing experience. Did I feel, and at the end of the fifth step, I felt different. What I felt was remarkably exposed. That's what I felt. And it was remarkably uncomfortable. But it was the only way I was going to discover for myself that I could tell you the truth about who I was and you wouldn't throw me away. That you would just consider me more as one of yours, as with you, than before. Right? That was it for me, and that was the only way a guy like me was. Believing you that because you told me so? Nah. Not like I got it when I did it. When I did it, I was in. I was in. I showed up, and I looked at my sponsor when I was done with my fifth step, and I said to him, now all I have to do is wait for you to die. And he looked at me and he said, oh, isn't that lovely? And he walked away. Amazing experience. An amazing experience. Let's take a break. Yeah. You're just glad it's almost lunch. Yeah. Okay, where the hell are we? What am I talking about? 5? 5. We were talking about 5, weren't we? Yeah? Talk about 6? Okay. You're gonna hate me for this. I love this part. You say that as if you know what I'm looking for. And you were correct. I love the guys. There's a guy I know that does the thing. I mean, he knows where everything is on what page, blah, 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 blah. He talks and he says, in the bottom of page 83, top of 84, it says, right? He does that through his whole talk, and everybody's sitting there going, they're all laughing like, he's just making this up, right? Then you go back to the book and you go, oh my God. He's nailing it every time. He's got it like memorized. I'm one of those guys that believes in libraries. I believe in books. Information's in here. I don't keep it in my head. Where is it? Well, it's in here. You can find it. Which reminds me, it says something on page 25. Don't shout it out if you know. We love the suspense. That I wanted to say because there was something somebody said to me during the break that made me think of it. And I figured, what the hell? I get the backtrack if I want. It says, there is a solution. Right there. Almost none of us likes the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had to come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When, therefore, we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. I don't know about you. That's pretty good news to me, because I've been living in a state of what I considered to be unparalleled madness and pain. So to discover that the tough part's going to be self-searching, leveling of pride, and confession of shortcomings, I'm in. Do I like those things? No. Am I willing to do those in an effort to get I was about to say to get my life back, but to get a life? I'm in. I'll do them. Tell me how to do them. Luckily, that's exactly what this step stuff is all about, right? Is doing this stuff. Remember, the whole idea here is to be restored to sanity, soundness of mind, to be relieved of the obsession to drink and use, to be free of the beast, to have that voice stop whispering in my ear. That's the whole point. So, right? So I'm doing this to bring about an experience. If I've done the fourth step, to the best of my ability, which I have done on more than one occasion. Some people do one a year. To this I say, terrific. Some people say they do one and that's it. To these people I say, wonderful. There are other people that say, I do spot inventories monthly. Fantastic. I don't go more than 5 years without doing an inventory. That's me. To this I say, good for you, Earl. Do I advise that you do the same? Nope. Do I advise that you sit quietly, doing things that we suggest later in the steps, so that you can do a proper assessment of where you're at? If you discover that you have once again in sobriety become restless, irritable, and discontented on a consistent basis, if you find that you are no longer reveling in the life that you live, if you find yourself out of sorts, I might suggest that you reinvest in the path. And a great way to do that is to engage in the action plan set forth before us. That action plan begins. Step 1, what's the problem? Lack of power. Step 2, what's the solution? A power. Step 3, make a decision to do something about this. Third step, prayer. Begin the action plan that brings this solution about in my life. 4 and 5, me. 6 and 7, God. 8 and 9, you. Me first. Got to clear away the stuff that I put between me and you and me and God, because you guys are coming up in 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. I'm going to be engaging you all. I've got to get this stuff out of the way so that that becomes possible for me. I put it there, I get it out of the way. Now people can say, and newcomers will say to me, but you know these resentments are well-founded. I beg to differ, Earl. I do not put this stuff in the way. People have done me great harm. Just the other day, I was just horribly insulted. I said, well, really, what happened? Well, I was making the coffee at the meeting, and a guy walked up to me and said, your coffee sucks. I consider this a heinous act, Earl. And my resentment is well-founded. I say, great. Now, here's what I want you to do. Now, what, are you going to just say it again? Yeah, yes, I am. I'm just going to say it again. Just do this and see what happens. See what happens. The discovery comes as a result of the action, of doing it. Right? So, my feeling about stuff like this one always gets me in trouble. If what you do is you come listen to as Earl sees it, right? Dangerous at best. To then go out there and figure, well, you know, I'm doing the steps because I sat there and I listened to him. You're in trouble. Don't do that. No. Actually get one of these One of the best kept secrets in Alcoholics Anonymous. The big book. Read it and do what it suggests. Do it. If you don't do it, you ain't going to get it like you could. So you understand what I mean? That's about watching golf on TV and then turning off the television and saying, I'm an excellent golfer. No, you're not. You have not experienced the horrifying moment when the perfectly struck 4-iron duck hooks. Right? You can't watch people surfing and go, I understand. No, you don't. When you go out there and try to catch 50 waves in a row and catch none of them, and then the one that you do catch shoves you to the bottom of the sea and back up again, and you come to the surface with sand and salt water exploding from every orifice of your body, right? When you go through all that and then suddenly the day comes where it all clicks and you catch the wave and you stand on the board and you slide down the face of a wave and you do a bottom turn, goofy foot into the wave, right? And suddenly you realize, I'm not in the way here. I'm a part of this. I'm not interfering with the process of this wave at all. I'm riding with the wave. I'm in a very natural experience. I'm in a rhythm that is of nature, not my own. I have found my way into that. And I'm getting a real buzz out of riding this wave, right? Now you know about surfing. Skydiving? I assure you that I know nothing about skydiving. And I can also assure you that I never will. Jumping out of a perfectly good plane is lunacy. But you don't know till you do it, right? So when people come to you with problems in AA, and you have no experience in those problems, say so. And give them the numbers to the people that do. I was sponsoring a guy who came to me and he had a great problem. He was suffering, and he had a sexual identity crisis going on. And he came to me and he said, Earl, I have a tremendous sexual identity crisis going on. And I said, bummer. Now here's a friend of mine, call him and talk to him immediately. Because he also suffered from a sexual identity crisis and he has resolved that to his own great satisfaction. Maybe he can help you with his experience in that. I don't have any. I mean, if somebody came to me and said, Earl, I struggle with being tall, I got to give you a number. Short guy back there laughing his ass off. It's not, what do I know? Right? However, I did have a guy, conversely, this is also true. I had a guy I was sponsoring call me up and say, we got to have lunch. Okay. I do that daily. We'll have lunch. So we go and we have lunch. And he goes, Earl, I got to get another sponsor. Because I'm married now. I go, I know, I was the best man at your wedding. He says, I'm married now and you're single. And, I think I need a married sponsor. So I'm going to get a married sponsor. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'm not upset by that. However, I would, just as a passing thought, you're also French. And I would suggest that you get a married French sponsor. You're also quite tall, so clearly a tall French married sponsor. And I live on the west side and you live in the valley, so I would suggest a tall married French sponsor that lives in the valley. He was pissed off enough at this point to pick up the check and take off. So what? This isn't about that stuff. This isn't about the facts of our lives. I remember that there was a meeting in L.A. that started. It was a Cocaine Anonymous meeting for cocaine-addicted Jewish attorneys. I was told of this when I was done laughing. He said, what do you think of that? And I said, fine. My experience says it ain't going to be there very long. And it lasted, I think, like 6 weeks. And then that meeting dissolved. Common problem, common solution. Our common problem is not that we are Jewish, or that we are gay or straight, or tall or short, or where we live. Our common solution, our common problem is that we are alcoholic. Period. And our common solution is this process. So, that brings me to page 76, where it says, and it speaks at great length, in a very, very detailed manner, precisely how to do steps 6 and 7. It says, if we can answer to our satisfaction, these questions concerning step 5, and prior to that, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us to be but willing. When ready, we say something like this. Didn't say precisely like this, said something like this. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have then completed step 7. Any questions? I have an opinion here. If you're taking notes, note that. Opinion number 47, Earl. Very short section on 6 and 7. And notice, 1 through 5, we covered 75 pages plus doctor's opinion, forewords, all kinds of stuff, right? Circles, triangles, a lot going on up there, right? We get to 6 and 7, zip, zip. We go to 8 and 9, tremendous amount of conversation about 8 and 9, and rightly so, because they're actually going to, if you'll notice, they're actually going to let us out of the house for the first time. Right? 1 and 2 on the couch. 3, kneel down, get back up on the couch. 4, right? 5, guy comes in. Before God, I read this to him. He says, good luck. He leaves. 6 and 7, 2 paragraphs. Getting ready to leave the house. Can they know how dangerous I can be armed with a little bit of information? So they're very, very cautious about how they let me out of the house. Right? It's a very, very short thing, and the reason I think is this. We're talking about a relationship with the unknowable. The one whose name cannot be spoken. The face no man has seen. Right? We're talking about infinity. I've taken lots of drugs. I've tried to wrap my head around infinity, and it just doesn't seem to get there. I get as far as I can go, spook myself, back in the room. That was close, you know? It's unknowable, right? I'm going to embrace something on a significantly different level than any other relationship I'm ever going to have. And in my opinion, again, opinion number 48, my opinion, the most powerful and influential relationship of my life. A relationship with a power greater than myself. God, for me. And it says, my Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. Taking my judgment out of it. That's taking me out of the loop. Here it is, all of me. The things that I consider good based on my belief system, my moral psychology, the things that I consider bad, all of it. Good, bad, look at it any way you want. Here it is, here I am, take it. All right? I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. It does not say, please remove this stuff from me, God, so that I can be one hell of a guy. So that I can walk the earth with people, as I walk by, people saying, why, that's Earl Hightower. Charming, charming man. Delightful fellow. He does a lot of good, doesn't he? Please. My usefulness to you and my fellows, that I can be of service in my life. This isn't about glorification of self. This is about getting out of your own way so that you can be a maximum service to God and your fellows. That's the whole idea. That's where the buzz is. I don't get off on me anymore, but I can. It's an amazing experience to sponsor some guy and play some infinitesimal small part of being a catalyst maybe to get him to do something that pushes him closer to God and to you, so that he has the experience of God and he has the experience of you, and the light comes back on in his lives and he lit in his eyes and he lives instead of dies. Wow! I never stuck anything in my arm that got me a buzz like that. Nothing. I remember sitting in a meeting. I always cry when I tell this story. Why do I tell it? I know I'm going to embarrass myself going in. Why do I go in? Apparently it must be told. So, I'm in a workshop, and we're doing this workshop, and there's a woman in this workshop, and her name is Kathy. I had watched Kathy wrestle with the obsession to drink and use for 9 years. And she finally became willing to go to this book study. She was really one of the reasons I agreed to even do it. So we got about 25 people and we're going through the book. And the format is we read 2 paragraphs and we stop. If anybody's got any questions regarding these 2 paragraphs, we mix it up. If anybody's got any experience with them, they share that experience. And we mix it up. And when everybody's done with whatever they need to say or whatever questions they need to ask, then we move on. And we have no time frame. We're in no hurry. We get through it when we get through it. And we're sitting in the meeting, and then we're going through the book. And then one day, we're going through, and it's not a different day than any other day. And before we start the meeting, Kathy raises her hand and says, I have something I want to say to the group. And we said, sure, go ahead. And she said, I've had the obsession to drink or use, drunk or sober, for 9 years. I've had small lengths of sobriety along the way, and I've always come to you. And I have never been relieved of the obsession to drink and use. And she said, I have not had the obsession to drink or use since our meeting last week. For this week, I've been free. I defy you to experience something like that and not be changed by it. Not be changed by it. To watch that woman struggle so courageously in the face of a disease that's going to win. It's going to win. To suddenly be free. She's free to this day. She's free to this day. She's married to a guy we knew was never going to get sober and stay that way. We knew. He's sober and staying that way. She's sober and staying that way. They are mighty examples of what can happen if you engage the process. They have a child. They're 2 absolute maniacs are raising a human. They made and are growing their own personal human. And may I suggest that that little person is very, very fortunate. Questionable gene pool, but a very fortunate child. Because those parents have in their lives something that the normal man takes for granted. They do not. They do not. That is the gift of today. This is a remarkable deal, right? So I think that it's important to continue in the process, engage the process, keep moving. And I think that the original 100 knew that when I got to 6 and 7, that I was suddenly going to humbly ask God to remove my defects of character, that I was going to give up the defects of character, which I have so enjoyed along the way, that I would spend on step 6, 12, 15 years. You know, become, you know, I mean, I'm entirely willing, I'm making great strides, but I'm not entirely there. I mean, I can, these ethereal concepts and ideas, I can just stay right there forever. Because I've read ahead. I've seen 8 and 9. And this needs to be delayed. Because I have letters to write to central office suggesting that this needs to be reconsidered. 8 and 9 is absurd. That's absurd. It's like Scott R. talks about the guy who gets up at the podium, was asked to read a portion of chapter 5, and you can tell as he's reading it that he's never seen it before. He's reading it for the first time, and he's reading through the steps. He reads, made direct amends whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Have you seen this? Just shocked that anybody would think that was a good idea. So I don't want to go anywhere near that, so I'm going to hover in 6 and 7. Great hovering steps, right? To get into just all the vagaries and the humility, willingness to learn. I'd love to get to 8, but I'm on 7, and I have to go to India, to really make sure, come back as Mahatma Hightower before I can go on to 8 and 9. 8 and 9. Should we get into 8 and 9 now? We have 20 minutes. Not nearly enough time for 8 and 9, is it? But I do have some lovely questions on the table. Should we have a moment for questions? So 6 and 7. Humbly ask God to remove your defects of character. Go ahead. And you know what? I ask God to remove the defects of character because I'll remove the wrong stuff. If it's up to me, right, I have defects here. I'll hang on to this for a little while. We'll talk again, maybe we'll swap. I got to get out of that. God, good and the bad, take it. Thy will, not mine. Thy will, not mine. Donald used to always say from the podium when he would talk about me, he'd say, and I'm constantly having to tell Earl, your name is not thy. So, I would sit out there going, which just made his day. He loved it. Here's a question. What do you say to a sponsee who has no part in any of his resentments? Let's try this again. That's what I say to him. Let's try this again. Give him some examples. Give him some examples. Where I would say, you got a resentment? Yeah, what's your resentment? This, what's this? Who? This person. What's the areas of your life? What specifically do you resent? Well, this, obviously, right? Well, what areas of your life are affected? Let's pick from these. Let's see. What areas of your life? Well, this, and this. Oh, all 7. Yeah, okay. Well, now, in my own life, here's an example. In a situation like that, I might find that I might be dishonest in this way. That I might be frightened in this way. I might be self-seeking in this way. Can you identify, just kind of, by the hand, a little bit by the hand, walk through and say, let's just suppose for a moment that this applies, right? And you just kind of ease them into it, because it is extremely difficult for a lot of us. We feel so self-righteous in our anger and in our resentment. We feel so incredibly justified in feeling the way that we feel. Well, Earl, I've been told that my feelings are my feelings and that they shouldn't be judged. Yes, well, that's lovely, And I would never in any way attempt to discount your feelings about anything. You feel the way you feel. But we're talking about something else now, right? We're not talking that this is the way you feel. Of course it's the way you feel, right? Let's deal with the rest of it, and let's see if we can't rid ourselves of some of these feelings. To resentment is to re-feel. Is that you're feeling this. An event occurred when you were 5, and to this day you continue, given the certain triggers or certain events line up a certain way, you re-feel this resentment towards this individual over and over and over and over again. Who is suffering as a result of re-feeling this is you. We're looking for a way out here. a legitimate way out. We're looking for legitimate relief. Legitimate relief. Not smoke and mirrors. Legitimate relief. So, I think you kind of got to walk them through sometimes. I did a huge inventory when I was 10. I had 518 resentments. Apparently more does get revealed as we move along, right? And it was, a lot of people said I would have been splitting hairs, and I say, fine, you think I was splitting hairs, then don't do it. How free do you want to be? And I've since looked back at that inventory, and 3 of those resentments are questionable now, out of 518. Not bad, you know? That doing the rest of that inventory stuff seemed to work very well on that stuff. What else have I got here? Was I talking about something, or did it just fade away, or am I all right? Somebody answer me. It says, what is your advice for AA members who only sponsor members that have sober time versus newcomers? Say, okay. If you only want to sponsor people with time, fine. But who are they going to sponsor? The people that you sponsor. Right? I remember there's a certain credential that you can get if you want to work in the field in treatment for chemical dependency. And on the test, one of the questions is, I actually wrote them a letter about this. And I don't write letters, but that one, I thought, oh, I'll write them a letter. As soon as I'm done with the 4 columns on this. Question, how much time should you have before you're a sponsor in AA? The answer to the question is 5 years. To which I thought, really? So if I'm sponsoring a guy and comes to me with 5 days and said, I'm afraid I'm going to drink any moment, what should I do? And I say, here we go. And we enter into this process, and I engage the guy, and we're going to meetings, and he's working through the steps, and he works through the steps. And this guy completes all 12 steps while he's going to meetings, has commitments in meetings, calling me on a daily basis. We're going through this thing. It's good. It's fierce. The guy's getting it. He's got 18 months of sobriety. He's completed all 12 steps. The lights have come on. This guy's on fire for Alcoholics Anonymous. At which point I then say to him, okay, in 3.5 years, I'm going to want you to begin to give this away to someone because we don't like you to, we find it a bit premature for you to be giving this away, not until you're 5. The fact that you have it to give away at 18 months is irrelevant. So again, we have this room, we have the half measures room, and then we have the holding room, where all individuals who have worked the 12 steps but are not yet 5 hover. We have them over there. Please, give it away. You want to keep it? Give it away. That's what we tell them. So give it away. Give it away. Give it away. Do it. You have any idea what took me there? Oh, this. Yes. So sponsors and only people sponsor with sober time, I don't understand doing that at all. Unless possibly somebody thinks that sponsoring somebody who's new is an inconvenience. Because the new ones are oftentimes less than thrilled with the process. Again, though, I think sponsoring people who's new is easy, because if they come to me and say, Earl, I'm in big, big trouble, what do you think I should do? Well, read the doctor's opinion in the first 8 pages of Bill's story. Ask yourself with each sentence, is this true for me? Do I identify with this? And if you do identify, if it's big for you, underline it. If you don't identify with it at all, write no. If you don't know what the hell it means, put a question mark. Right? And then call me back. Well, I don't want to do that. Okay. And don't do it. But if you want what I got, you got to do what I did to get it. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine with me. But maybe you should get somebody else to sponsor you, who's going to do it your way. Which may I add, so far going very well. Right? I mean, I don't want them to like me. I want them to live. Do you know what I mean? I don't want them to like me. I want them to live. That's why I love Donald Madden. I needed my ass kicked. I got my ass kicked. When I needed a hug, I got a hug. Right? Donald Mann didn't care if I liked him. He wanted me to live. He loved me enough to tell me the truth. And his truth was far more evolved than mine. This is a remarkable man. An absolutely remarkable man. So, people say to me, well, how can you tell the new guy okay when you know it's not going to work? And this is my reason. If alcoholism has not beaten that individual into a state of reasonableness like the book suggests, how the hell am I going to? We've already proven beyond the shadow of a doubt alcoholism is far more powerful than I am. Okay? I fought the beast and I lost every round. Okay? So what I can suggest by my example is a contrary way of living to a new person. If somebody comes to me and says, I like the light in your eyes, I like this buzz idea, let's catch the buzz, I say, fine, this is what we do to get it. If you do it, you'll get it. It won't have anything to do with me. It'll be your journey, your experience, your victory, your life, your understanding, your buzz. It won't be, people, if you walk around, catch the buzz of this thing, people are not going to say, oh, look, he got Earl's buzz. They'll say, oh, look, Bob caught the buzz. Bob fired up. Bob's smiling. Bob was a nasty individual. Bob's not nasty anymore. Bob's kind of nice. I had a woman come to me and say, she's a mean woman. It's a mean, ornery woman. Whenever she gets called on, everybody just kind of hunkers down in their seat. Right? Because it's going to be venomous. You know? This goddamn program and all you little people, chirp, 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 chirp. Towing the party line, bunch of sheep. Whenever I'm leading a meeting and I call and I finish, I say, thank you for sharing. Jeez, just to piss her off a little more. Said to her, you know what, why don't you, one day she's doing it and I was just in a bad mood and she came out, rah, 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 rah. And I said, you know what, how annoying are you? We all know you're pissed off. We get it, okay? You're angry, you're not happy. Got it. Don't want to know any more about it. How about this? If you want something different, why don't you stop doing what you keep doing because you keep getting the same thing? Why don't you do something different? I got an idea. Why don't you get a commitment here? Why don't you be a greeter? And every time I come to the meeting, you shake my hand and say, hi, Earl, welcome. I'll know what you're really thinking. But I dare you to smile at me and tell me, welcome, Earl. She got a commitment. You know what? She loves that meeting now. Now, how can that be? How can that be? See, that's the cool thing about this. It's really simple. That's why it's so tough for us. We're so dramatic. You know? I mean, it would probably work better if when we got sober, they said, okay, you're sober now, you want to do this anything? Good. Here's a card, here's an address on this piece of paper. If you go to this address, you will find the AA library. We have over 100,000 volumes of how this works. We suggest you get started immediately. 100,000 books. Right! I'm on my way. Where are you going? Can't talk! I got 100,000 books to read. By when? Friday. I'll be done by Friday. It's intense, it's big, it's grandiose. Instead, we come in and go, wow, dying of alcoholism, going insane, alienated from family, friends, God, isolated beyond belief, right? Experiencing a level of madness you did not think the human mind or the human body could bear, right? I mean, have you sunk to levels you thought below the human experience? You're in an unknown, unreal place of madness and despair? Bummer. Here's a book. You know, and people just go, yeah, okay, coaster. Not dramatic enough. Just not dramatic enough. So then you go to the meetings, and of course we're all lone wolves, we're all the bad guy, we're all the cocaine cowboy, aren't we? Everybody's a tough guy. It's just hysterical to me. I can't tell you how many times in AA I've heard somebody say, you know, I'm going to kick his ass. please. I've been to thousands of AA meetings. I've seen like 4 ass whippings in the whole time I've been. Everybody's a tough guy. What was I talking about? Questions? More? Do another one? I feel like I should say when I have a question, here's a question. Does the fear inventory have 4 columns? I know it's not big. The person who asked this question, don't feel insulted. That's a really good response to the question. It's in here. This will tell you. My favorite, I was living with a woman. We got engaged at some point. Neither of us knows why. We were living together. This is a woman who'd been in and out for years and years and years and years. We met it. I mean, it was just boom, right? One of those across the crowded room things, you know? The ones that I've learned that when that happens, turn and run, right? It's not going to go well. And she came up to me and we were living together. She goes, "Where's the 3rd step?" I said, "It's in the book." She goes, yeah, I know. "Where in the book?" I said, "Who am I to rob you of the experience of discovering that for yourself? Take your own journey. Stop asking for everybody to smooth the bumps out for you. Invest something. Sit down, find 2, and read from there. You're going to hit it. Into the book. Find it." Well, ask me. She looked at me and she goes, "I know where it is. It's in that chapter, We Antagonists, isn't it?" And I said, "You got me. Go find it in the chapter entitled We Antagonists." I've often thought, we got to write that chapter. That's a great chapter. This nigga love that. Anyway, so that's the discovery, the process of doing it. How you get it. We're not going to sit in here and go through no. Go and get in a book study. You don't have one, start one. You don't know how to lead it? Buy the Joe and Charlie tapes from the original Joe and Charlie series. The Big Book Comes Alive, right? And use that and go through the book. Stop the tape, talk about it. Put a little more. Stop the tape, talk about it. Put Scott R. in. Put me in. Put us all on and debate about who really understands this. Come up with your own set that says, we're all full of it. This is the way to go. Love that. Love that. Find your own way. That's all that's going to work, right? You didn't drink his way. You didn't use her way. Come on out of it together. This is the roadmap. These are the guidelines. This is the text suggesting that we study it. You got to get in and wrestle with it. Wrestle with it. You're going to get it perfect? Nope. We're going to give you a degree? Be happy to. Be happy to give you a degree? Give you one. Call me up. Give me a fax number. I'll put a diploma together for you and shoot it right out. I actually made one up for a guy I sponsored who said he was finished with the steps. I said, really? Right. So we had a graduation ceremony for him. Nino. We graduated him from AA. I said, now what do you want to do? He says, I'm getting the feeling that you would like me to go to another meeting. I said, beautiful. You know what? Good, we'll go together. Right? I got a red light. So I've answered that. I've answered that. I've answered that. I answered that one very well. This one is an outside topic. So as soon as we're done and this gets shut off, I'll answer that one. And that one. And I'm on time. Look at that. Look at that. I'm on time. Go to lunch. See you in an hour.